So today we have a tragic story. It's coming out of my hometown, Charlotte, North Carolina, and it's left not only the city of Charlotte in shock, but now that it's reached national news, it's now getting presidential attention and now having the whole world in shock. A woman by the name of Iryna Zarutska was just 23 years old and was riding Charlotte's Lynx Blue Line when her life was taken in a brutal random act of violence. The man accused of unaliving her is 34-year-old DeCarlos Brown, and now the U.S. Attorney's Office has stepped in, making their federal case with the potential for the death penalty. Now, Iryna was from Ukraine, part of the community that had sought safety here in the United States. She was simply trying to get to her destination when this nightmare unfolded. Prosecutors described her as an innocent woman simply trying to get to her destination and said she deserves justice. Now, Brown's family claims that he was diagnosed with schizophrenia after a prison stint and he refused to take his medication. His own words to his sister in a recent jail call that we'll play later claims that he has material in his body that made him unalive Iryna. This could possibly be used in his defense, but let's get into the story to find out what happened on that fateful night. According to the criminal complaint that we've obtained, the defendant, DeCarlos DeJuan Brown Jr., is a 34-year-old man who has resided in recent years in Charlotte, North Carolina. On August 22, 2025, at approximately 9:55 p.m., officers of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department CMPD Central Division received a call for service related to an assault with an unaliving weapon that occurred on the Lynx Blue Line located at the Katz East-West Boulevard Station, 1821 Camden Road, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28203. Comments from the 911 call advised that a woman had been struck with a knife by a black male wearing a black shirt, light blue jeans, and an orange hooded sweatshirt. CMPD officers responded to the scene and arrested Brown on the outbound Lynx Blue Line platform located at the same CAT station as the call for service. Officers also located a folded pocket knife near the outbound light rail platform. At the time of Brown's arrest, his clothing matched the suspect's clothing description as given by the 911 callers. Additionally, Brown had a laceration to his right hand. Brown was arrested and then transported to the Atrium Main Hospital to be treated. Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department located the victim in the rear of the CATS train marked 316A at the inbound platform. The victim, subsequently identified as IZ, was laying on her back, deceased, next to a large amount of blood, with a single unaliving wound in the middle of her neck and a small cut at her left knee, with her arms by her side and her legs extended out. The victim was wearing a black t-shirt, khaki pants, and black Nike shoes. CMPD crime scene investigator CSI responded to the scene and collected the pocket knife, which was covered in suspected blood, in addition to a red shirt soaked in suspected blood. CMPD CSI also collected swabs from suspected blood on the platform and buckle, hand and fingernail swabs from the victim. CMPD CSI also collected other items located on the victim's person and in the seat where the victim sat prior to the attack. CMPD detectives obtained surveillance footage from inside the light rail car at approximately 9:46 p.m. The victim can be seen entering the light rail car and sitting down in the row in front of Brown. At approximately 9:50 p.m., Brown pulled a knife from his pocket and unfolded the knife before striking the victim 3 times from behind. Following the attack, suspected blood can be seen dripping onto the floor as Brown walked away from the victim. Based on the above information, your affiant respectfully requests the issuance of a criminal complaint against DeCarlos DeJuan Brown Jr. Now, Brown has a long criminal history, 14 prior charges, including robbery with a dangerous weapon that landed him in prison for 5 years. He was released in 2020. Now, his own mother, Michelle DeWitt, says he was never the same after his incarceration. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and Brown reportedly refused to take his medication. Family members noticed his behavior spiraling, yelling, slamming doors, talking to himself, and claiming bizarre things about material being inside of his body. This is a jail phone call between him and his sister just days after his arrest.
So you said something in your body did what? Nah, the material, put it like this, the material using my body to stab the lady.
And so she just got stabbed.
Yeah. You know that's not me. I'm talking about just for no reason. But since they did that, now they gotta investigate the material my body is exposed to. Since they want to do all that, now they gotta investigate.
It's funny because she's from the Ukraine. She's from Russia, and they got a war. They had a war going on against the United States. So I'm just trying to understand, out of all people, why her?
Hey, it ain't. I don't have nothing. Hey, they just lashed out on her. That's what happened. They lashed out on her. Who else was working the album? Who was working the material? Whoever was working the material? They lashed out on her.
DeCarlos once was staying with his mother and her husband. She said that he just started acting out, slamming doors, pretty much just not himself. So at that time, she said she couldn't take it anymore and she sent him to a mental health hospital. She said that hospital told her that they did not have enough room to admit him, and because he wasn't threatening to hurt himself or threatening to hurt others, that they couldn't take him. She said the hospital told her, you can't make a person come to the facility. So at that time, she said she had no other option. She went to the court to file with the magistrate a petition for her son to get help. As a result of that, she said a mental health facility kept Brown for 14 days, but eventually released him back to her and her husband's care. She said that she hoped to keep him on a schedule and create a routine for him, but it didn't work out that way and he stopped taking his medication once again. She said she was left with no other option but for both her and her husband to drop him off at a shelter. She identified the shelter as Roof Above Lucille Giles Men's Shelter in Charlotte, which is ran by a non-profit organization called Roof Above. So at the time of this unaliving, he was indeed homeless, roaming the streets at the time, and unfortunately, this tragedy happened. So unfortunately, in another moment from the phone call, DeCarlos stated that he was going downtown to the hospital to tell them that I'm going to get rid of the material to stop going crazy. But it was too late. When his sister Tracy confronted her brother face to face, she said he chillingly added that he believed Iryna was inside of his thoughts, spying on him. This is another terrifying delusion. His sister Tracy says, I'm going to be honest, I'm not blaming anyone for his actions except for the state. I'm blaming the state for letting him down as far as seeking help. When you have mentally ill people seeking help and you're running tests on them, and you clearly see that you're dealing with the psychosis on an acute level, you do not let them back into society. Given DeCarlos Brown's past history of mental illness, it is normal procedure to determine the defendant's capacity to proceed with the trial. Because of that, he will be sent to the Central Regional Hospital, Butner campus, for examination on capacity to proceed, and he is to be there no longer than 60 days. Now, if Brown is found competent to stand trial, that means he understands the charges against him and he can help his lawyer with his defense. The judge says Mr. Brown, he's competent, will move forward with the trial. The case proceeds like any other criminal case. Evidence is presented, witnesses testify, and the jury decides if he's guilty or not. Now, if he's convicted, he faces either life in prison or he gets the death penalty, though his mental illness still can influence his sentencing. Now, if Brown is found not competent to stand trial, that means he's too mentally ill right now to understand what's happening in court. The judge will order him to a federal medical center or psychiatric hospital for treatment, and doctors there will try to restore his competency, usually with medication and therapy. Then he has two possible paths from the hospital. After months of treatment, doctors report back Mr. Brown is stable and understands the court's process, and the judge will rule that he's now competent and the trial will resume. Evidence about his mental illness may still come up at trial, but the case continues. Now, if his competency is never restored, for example, after long treatments, doctors say he's unlikely to ever regain competency. At that point, the court may decide to commit him to a secure psychiatric facility indefinitely. He wouldn't be serving a traditional prison sentence, but he also wouldn't be released. He'd likely spend the rest of his life in a locked hospital environment. Now, this case just isn't about DeCarlos or the legal twist or even a question of his mental illness. At the center of all of this is 23-year-old Iryna Zarutska. Iryna came from this country, from Ukraine, trying to escape hardship and seeking peace, only to lose her life in the most senseless way imaginable, on a train just trying to get to where she needed to go. She was a daughter, she was a friend, she was a young woman who had her whole future ahead of her. Her life mattered, and it's her name that we need to remember. So when we talk about justice in this case, it isn't just about what happens to DeCarlos Brown in court. Justice is about honoring Iryna's memory, supporting her family, and making sure that no one else has to suffer the way that she did. What I need to do is hear from you. What do you think about this case? What do you think about the mental illness of DeCarlos Brown Jr.? Do you think this will affect the outcome of the trial? Leave a comment, and you know how we do. We'll talk about it down below. Talk to you guys later. Bye. As always, thanks for watching, but before you go, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and hit the bell so you don't miss out on any of my new episodes.